got a license to talk.
Shocking. Positively shocking.
And the words are for your ears only.
I think you got the point.
Welcome to The Words Are Not Enough.
On episode number 11 of The Words Are Not Enough is Ed Sheeran potentially writing a Bond song. As the year comes to a close, we give you a James Bond Christmas, packed with our favorite snow action set pieces from the series, our favorite news stories from the year, and we top it all off with a little on Her Majesty's Secret Service appreciation. So stay tuned. What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Words Are Not Enough. I believe this is episode number 11. Don't quote me, but I think it's episode number 11. Anyways, I am one of your hosts, Griffin, OH Schiller.
And I am Brody, 005 Saravelli.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So, the last time we did this show, I believe we said that we were going to have several episodes that would have come out before this time. And that did not happen. Let me tell you, let's just take a little trip down memory lane here and talk about the process it took to get to the recording session of this show right here. Oh my gosh. I think we went for about 2 weeks to saying, hey, we'll do it this day. Oh, wait, no, we can't do it this way. Oh, we'll do it this way. No, we can't. Something else just came up. No, I think we're good for today. Nope, can't do it. And it was just like a back and forth, just hectic schedules. I mean, it's the holidays. What are you going to do?
Finals as well. It's just been
just shit happens, Maybe we should have recorded a bunch of episodes in one sitting in advance, but what can I say? I apologize.
Live and let learn. Live and let learn from that.
Yeah, you live and let learn, I guess. Not live and let die. I don't know. But anyways, Brody, how are you doing on this lovely Friday?
It's Friday. I've lost track of the days, to be honest.
They blend together.
They all start to blend together, yeah. No, I'm good. I've finished my finals, so I'm pretty relaxed, to be honest. Not really even. I feel like there's something in the back of my mind telling me there's always something to do. So
there is always something to do.
Yeah, which has been quite odd. But I'm surviving. I'm getting by. So how about you?
It's just just when you think you're done, something else happens. It's just nope.
Yep.
Not letting you go yet. Not letting you go. It's not going to happen. No. But, the Christmas is in 2-3 days now. We were recording this on December 22nd. And as a result, we are going to have a nice little Christmas themed episode for you all.
How exciting.
It's going to be quite nice, actually, I have to say. But before we get into that, we do have some stories that we want to cover because we have a Tomorrow Never Lies segment. We missed some stories from the past couple weeks. And all that good stuff. But before we dive into the stories, Brody, I want you to tell us, have you finished your Christmas shopping?
I have not, actually, to be honest. It's not good at all. I wouldn't recommend anyone take this approach. But I have the advantage of most of my family living overseas, so they weren't going to get my gifts in time anyway. So it's I'm taking advantage of that a little bit.
So you abuse the system is what you're telling me.
This is a way to put it. I'm taking advantage of the geographical constraints that have been imposed.
Boundaries.
Yeah, the boundaries. It makes things easy, and it's also nice because I get to see now what my brother got my parents and one up him. Now, you know what I mean?
Ooh.
So I'm going to see how they react to what he got them. And then, it's very sneaky.
That's a little bit of a dick move there. I don't know how I feel about that.
I'm waiting on a paycheck.
You're abusing the system. You're taking the Christmas spirit and you're taking a giant shit on it.
Wow, that's an interpretation. That's something I don't agree with it, but we'll go with it. If that's
Oh dear me. All right, you know what? I think the only way to move past this is just to talk about some news, to talk about Tomorrow Never Lies or whatever.
There you go.
Does that make sense? Is that the logical progression of this conversation?
That was a seamless transition, honestly. I think one of your best.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it's not. It probably isn't. This is already starting out to be a shit show. Maybe worse than the last episode.
Oh my god. Yeah, Griffin's slowly descending into like holiday madness. So
you know what the problem is when we don't do shows in X amount of weeks, I lose my touch.
Yeah, that might be it. Yeah.
When I lose my touch, it takes me a little bit to get that touch back.
Gotta fall back into those rhythms, yeah.
I exclusively blame you for all of the delays.
Oh my god, that's wildly inaccurate, but I'll burden it. I'll be like I'll be like Batman at the end of the Dark Knight.
Wildly inaccurate.
I'll take the I'll take the fall so that you, as the Harvey Dent of this show, can remain free of guilt.
I don't know if I want to be the White Knight. That sounds kind of racy.
Speaking of White Knight, we segue into Tomorrow Never Dies, which is Tomorrow Never Lies. Oh,
wow, that is a freaking transition right there.
Oh yeah, that's a
holy crap! Way to use it.
Sorry.
Way to use it. Great spiral. All right, so our first topic in Tomorrow Never Lies, first story that we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
Ed Sheeran. Ed Sheeran's making waves in the Bond sphere of the interwebs.
Interesting.
So, speaking with the lovely James Corden, who Brody has no quarrels with whatsoever.
None at all.
He was none at all. While promoting his new album on The Late Late Show, great name, by the way, quality name, Ed Sheeran... sound like such assholes. Ed Sheeran discussed his interest in performing a James Bond title song, saying the following: "With Bond, I've actually had a theme tune written for about..." Theme tune? Wow. Okay, that's one way to say it. I've had a theme tune written for about 3 years.
Oh my god. Just in case. Yeah, like it's like he's like one of those doomsday preppers. He's like just in case. Like I've got like cans and cans of beans. Just in case.
He's like actually aware of how like popular he is, and he's like, I may be approached for a Bond song. He said, let me finish out this quote. God, this is going to be a struggle. He said, admitting filmmakers haven't got around to actually asking him yet. And then, quote, "But it's good. It's good." Wow.
Jesus. Jesus
what
Christ.
A story.
What a terrible,
my gosh, Brody,
story.
First of all, I want to know your thoughts on not only James Corden and The Late Late Show, but your thoughts on an Ed Sheeran Bond song and Ed Sheeran's comments, really.
Oh my god. Okay, I'll start with James Corden, which is completely irrelevant. James Corden is a blight on late night television.
Wow.
And he needs to go away.
He's a nice guy.
He's not a nice guy. He's not a nice guy from what I've heard. He actually, the reason I don't like James Corden
is you heard?
Somewhat related to James Bond. So this is actually quite a so apparently, right, he was at some sort of concert in the UK, and I think it was in the UK, and in any case, he was there, and he saw Pierce Brosnan at this concert, and Pierce Brosnan was there with some friends. He was just being a private citizen enjoying a concert, and James Corden approaches him at this concert and starts like sort of just being an annoying fan, which is fine in and of itself. But then he kept harassing him, saying, like, expecting to be welcomed into Pierce Brosnan's group, which Pierce is just there with friends. Just leave him alone. So, like, sort of say your thing and then leave him alone. But he didn't. He kept like sort of harassing him, and because of that, James Corden then goes on TV on his show and says that Pierce Brosnan was extremely rude to him, and said like he's one of those celebrities you shouldn't meet because he's like very disappointing and rude in person. And when I heard that, I was just like, you're a real prick. Like, you expected everyone... he thinks the world revolves around him, and you're some big celebrity, so that Pierce Brosnan must have...
Interesting.
Is responsible to hang out with you because you think you're a big shot. And it's just like... And then you went and slandered him when he didn't want to hang out with you. It's like... Give the man some fucking privacy. He doesn't know you.
Interesting.
So
I'm surprised that didn't make bigger waves if it's the issue that you're saying.
It did at the time. When he made the comments, it was a big story. It was like a tabloid story at the time. But in general, I just don't think he's that funny. I think I'm really kind of annoyed that he's being wedged into every friggin' movie. Like, he's like the go-to British guy now for all these movies. Like, he was in the Emoji movie. He's going to be in this the movie the Rabbit one. I used to read those books too.
Oh yeah, Peter Rabbit.
Peter Rabbit. Yeah, he's going to be in Peter Rabbit. He's going to be in what's that other movie he's going to be in?
Ocean's 8.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be in Ocean's 8. He's just in a bunch of shit now, and it's just annoying, and I really don't like him.
Okay, well now I understand a little bit more about where your dismay for
that was slightly more on topic than I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah,
but
a little bit more. But we
yeah,
related it back to Pierce, so that's good.
Yeah. I mean, that mainly. I'm a huge James Bond fanboy, so seeing him disrespect Pierce Brosnan was definitely not a way to get in my good books. Yeah,
not
but Ed Sheeran, on the other hand, not my favorite musician, honestly. I don't dislike him. I just don't like him that much. I don't have any real, like,
man, don't
affinity.
you be hating on Ed Sheeran like that. Come on.
I'm not hating. I just don't have any affinity for his music. He's good. He's very talented. I just don't... It's not my kind of music. So him doing a Bond song, I'm like, I don't know if I would want that in a Bond song, like his style. But
it depends on the Bond song, you know? Like you said, like if it's his style...
Yeah.
But... You know, I think I did bring this up when we were talking about people who we'd like to see do a Bond song.
Yeah.
And I had him, I can't remember whether I had him on my list or whether he was an honorable mention.
I think he was an honorable mention, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of liked the idea because it's a little out of the box. I think it wouldn't be like another Sam Smith for sure, because Ed Sheeran isn't really piano based as far as his music goes.
I still think they have like a very similar vocal quality.
Oh,
in terms of like this, the things they sing about. I don't know. I just get like I get vibes from the two of them.
Maybe. I don't know. I could see him pulling off a good Bond song if there was a nice orchestral accompaniment.
Maybe.
I mean, just look what he did with the Desolation of Smog. I mean, I'm not saying like I See Fire is a Bond song. It's not. It's very much a Middle Earth song. But like it's, you know, it shows that he can kind of do orchestral backed pieces.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think I'm probably conflating his style with him. So, and obviously,
sure.
I'm picturing Shape of You, but as a Bond song. I'm like, ooh, that is like this.
God.
Oh, that makes me angry. But yeah, I mean, he's a talented guy. So if he has an idea, he seems passionate about it. Which again, going back to like the thing I say every fucking episode, if you have passion for something, that's more than enough reason for me to give you a chance.
Right.
So like if I'm not a huge Ed Sheeran fan, but if he has if he's had one for 3 years and he's that into Bond, yeah, give him a chance. Like, I'll give him a chance.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah, well, and that's the, you know, I was kind of laughing about it. He's like, I've had a theme tune written for about 3. Like, I don't know. That's an awful British accent, but just like the theme tune thing got me. That was kind of a weird choice of words. Funny, yeah. And then he's just kind of like, you know, he's had it in his back pocket just in case someone comes knocking.
He's had it for 3 years. Maybe it'll be for, like, wouldn't it be funny if like they just used the exact song he wrote 3 years ago for the song, and it's like about Spectre, but they use it in a different movie.
Yeah, that'd be pretty funny. I don't know. My whole thing on this is, and then it was really funny that it's like they haven't got around to asking me yet, but it's all good, guys. No worries, I'm not offended. You know, it's just kind of like if they want you, they'll come to you. And I actually think they have there's a chance that he will be solicited for one. He's
one of those hot new talents. Yeah, I think
I mean, he's been a talent for a while now, and he's very well known, respected. Everyone knows he's like a nice guy, and like he clearly has a passion to do a Bond song. So maybe, you know, hook him up with David Arnold's orchestra and see what he can do.
You roped me back in with the David Arnold.
There we go. See, all you have to do is mention David Arnold, guys.
Honestly, yeah.
And Brody, just his ears perk up like a dog. It's just like, whoop.
I mean, it's true. Honestly, like David Arnold could work with any musician. He could do a Bond song with Taylor Swift, and I'd give it a chance.
Stop! I think you've crossed the line now.
Imagine
your affection for David Arnold has now crossed into awful music taste.
Isn't Ed Sheeran friends with Taylor Swift?
I think they used to date.
Oh, did they really? Weird.
Or they had a fling, something like that.
Very strange. Imagine. Actually,
I'm pretty sure "Shape of You" is about Taylor Swift.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Okay. Wouldn't it be funny?
Don't quote me, people. I could be wrong. This may be incredibly inaccurate, but
imagine a Taylor Swift Ed Sheeran duet Bond song with Tom Hiddleston as Bond.
So are we about to hit Another Way to Die 2.0?
And Harry Styles as the bad guy. There we go. Now we've got like a Taylor Swift Bond movie.
Wow, this is you've just like created a monstrosity that I never want to see in my entire life. You've already put the idea in my head, and it looks disgusting.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I wouldn't recommend it.
Bad. All right, and on that note, let's move away from that Taylor Swiftness and into some James Norton-ness. So that was my best attempt at a segue. That didn't really work out. But yeah, maybe we'll get better as it goes along. So actor James Norton has overtaken Tom Hardy as the most favored to assume the role of 007, apparently after Daniel Craig, with bookies upping his odds to 5-2 after his role in McMarfia. Very interesting name for a show, a movie, or whatever. I've never heard of it. McMarfia.
I think it's a show, yeah.
It probably is. I know he was in War and Peace, right?
Yes, he was, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I know him from, and I think that's about it. But anyways, on the Bond rumors, Norton said the following: "It's lovely, wonderful, and complimentary to be involved in that conversation, but it's just a rumor mill, and that's as far as it goes. I did mention at the time that those scenes would possibly contribute to the Bond rumors, but McMarfia is its own beast. I hope Daniel Craig does 5 more movies and can keep the rumors on himself. I'm a big fan of his, and selfishly, I'd like him to carry on." Lovely little shout out there to Daniel Craig. I'd love to see him do 5 more movies as well.
Honestly,
not gonna happen, but it'd be a nice thing to say. Brody, let's get your thoughts on this topic. Thoughts on James Norton playing 007, and then also on his comments here.
I'll start with the comments because they're pretty brief. Very nice. I mean, what else was he going to say? Honestly,
right.
And interesting that I guess McMafia has sequences that are Bond-esque that have led people to sort of think one way or the other.
It is very interesting. Yeah,
makes me intrigued to sort of check that out. And very nice, very like respectful of Daniel Craig and of the role. Sounds like he has like reverence for the role, which is cool.
Right.
I know you feel differently, but I think he looks a lot like Daniel Craig, so I actually kind of like him.
Yeah, I think he looks like a cross between Jeffrey Rush and very much John Cena.
I don't see John Cena at all. I honestly don't.
I see a lot of John Cena.
Oh my god, I see Daniel Craig, Jeffrey Rush, and who else did I say before when we were talking about this?
I can't remember the guy you said, but yeah, you said someone else.
Oh yeah, Eddie Redmayne. There's a little Eddie Redmayne in
there.
Yeah. Just it's like something about the mouth is very Eddie Redmayne, but Sorry, James Norton, we're just sort of discussing your face. But no, I think he looks a lot like he looks like Daniel Craig. So if someone was to continue, this is the interesting thing about like continuing for Daniel Craig. There's been such an emphasis on continuity that if they replace him without doing a soft reboot, which I feel would be an odd thing. I feel like if they reboot, it's kind of an awkward thing because we just spent basically Daniel Craig's entire tenure delving into the why of Bond and the
Well, that's what makes his tenure so special. You know, if they were to reboot it after Craig and have it be its own thing, it would be very much in Bond tradition.
I know, but I mean, Bond tradition is kind of like a soft, not even Bond tradition is kind of like no continuity whatsoever. So,
well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like if they just, maybe I didn't say it in the best way, but if they, cast someone else as James Bond and the next movie is a Bond film, but it really has no reference to the past films or like anything, and it's just like its own beast. It is just like, well, here's another James Bond film. I feel like people aren't going to be like, well, wow, what are you just discarding everything that happened in the previous film? People know and understand Bond enough for them to be like, okay, so the Craig films are kind of like their own thing. They'll live in the continuity that they live in. So this will be going kind of back to Bond tradition. There is no continuity. James Bond's on a new adventure. Let's dive in.
Yes, I don't know. I won't presume to know what people will think, but I I think it's almost like we spent so much time setting up, like getting Daniel Craig to that classic Bond stage that I almost feel like naturally the next ones are going to be sort of more classic. But how do you use elements like Spectre? I feel like when you start bringing in those elements, it starts to become a little more like, do we acknowledge that Bond has encountered Blofeld and Spectre before, or
sure,
like stuff like that? So I feel like in that scenario, I wouldn't mind if like a soft reboot. I wouldn't mind if it's like all the stuff that happened in the Craig films happened to this Bond, but in different ways, or maybe like it's slightly different, but still kind of the same.
Sure.
Because like I almost like that being like the definitive. I like Daniel Craig's films being like that kind of like that touchstone, that definitive Bond origin story. In the same way that like things in the original series. The original series makes it sound.
The original.
Yeah, but
what are we talking about? Star Trek here?
Yeah, things like Tracy Bond's death and stuff like that. Those are all like sort of. Those carry on regardless of the continuity.
Yeah, for sure.
I kind of like the idea of Vesper and all that being something that carries on.
Well, sure. I'm not saying you can't have elements that carry on, like you said, but it's just like, so I guess if they were to have a new Bond, it would kind of just be like a soft reboot or something.
That's what I'm thinking too. And so like,
that seems case, like the logical way to go.
Yeah, in that case, I think having an actor who looks a bit like Daniel Craig would be kind of cool. Like it's kind of the same guy, but not really the same guy. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
I think that'd be kind of cool. Considering there's been such an emphasis on continuity so far, but I understand if they don't. And in any case, I think Daniel Craig has sort of changed what people think of as when they think of a Bond. So sure. I think he has a nice mix of sort of a classic Bond aesthetic and also looks a bit like Daniel Craig in that sense.
I don't really see James Bond when I look at him, to be honest with you. I mean, that's not taking away. It's not to take anything away from his acting abilities, or like his appearance or anything. It's just like I don't personally see James Bond when I look at him. Granted, I have not seen McMarfia. I have no idea what those scenes in that show or the movie or whatever the hell it is. I have no idea what those scenes do for him as far as like people saying, "Oh wow, he really emulates James Bond." Like I have no idea. I haven't seen it, but just kind of going off of the knowledge that I have, I don't know. I mean, there are worse choices and there are certainly better choices. I just personally don't think that he would be anywhere in my like top 10 actors that I would pick to play James Bond.
I'd pick him above. I mean, he's probably not my top pick, but I'd pick him above Tom Hardy for sure.
No way.
Absolutely.
No way. I want my Tom Hardy. Come on, man.
I mean, we're talking about people who look like Bond. Tom Hardy doesn't really look like Bond. He only looks like Bond because
it doesn't matter.
He only kind of looks like kind of looks like Bond because we've accepted that rougher guys like Daniel Craig can be Bond now. I don't know.
Well, maybe. He also looks pretty suave in. Did you see Legend?
Yeah, I did. I don't know if. Tom Hardy would be fine. I wouldn't be mad with Tom Hardy.
He can clean up if he has to.
I mean, he would be a little rougher. He'd just be like it's just his general physicality, the way he talks. It's just, which he's a damn fine actor, but I don't know. I just don't see it. But as much as I don't see it as much as other people do. So
sure.
He's a little too. He'd be taking the wrong lessons from Daniel Craig's tenure, I think.
Maybe.
But anyway, not about Tom Hardy.
Anyways, it's just kind of a nice little rumor thing here. James Norton says some great things about Daniel Craig, which is it's nice to see that he's had an impact on younger actors in the business, and like people are like, oh, love Daniel Craig, love his work, love what he's done with the character, how he's like kind of like really come into his own and stuff like that. I mean, he doesn't say that, but you can feel his reverence for him and how he's had an impact on James Bond for James Norton and stuff like that. So it's a nice little rumor there. So anyways, moving on to our next story. Now usually I go through all the stories here, but this one speaks to Brody. I think that this story in particular, this little thingy here really speaks to you. Am I wrong?
in so much that when I did my solo episode, I had to talk about this and walk on eggshells. In that sense, yeah. In that I have,
you ready to walk on some eggshells again?
Yeah, in that I have PTSD over like this particular topic. Then yes, it does speak to me in that sense.
Okay, well, let's dive into it then,
Lord
shall we? Do you want to? I'll let you take the lead on this story.
Oh no! Don't do that! Don't do that!
I'm doing it. It's happening.
So, okay, we have two stories here essentially, but I kind of categorized them together when I was doing the notes, just because they're related in a lot of ways, and you'll see what I mean.
Yeah.
So essentially, these two stories have to do with the prospect of a female James Bond. And we have two accounts. We have a comment from Theresa May, the current Prime Minister of of Britain, and Christoph Waltz, who is Christoph Waltz, famous Austrian actor, played Blofeld, if you haven't seen Spectre and are watching this for some reason.
In case you don't know who Christoph Waltz is, famous Austrian actor. He was in Inglourious Bastards, Django Unchained, played Blofeld.
Yeah, little things. The little indie actor. But anyway, yeah, so...
little indie actor.
First of all, we have Theresa May. And Theresa May, while speaking to journalists on her RAF Voyager, I don't know what that is, Royal Air Force Voyager, I guess... but anyway, she offered her thoughts on the 13th Doctor of BBC's long-running series Doctor Who being played by a woman, which has been recently sort of revealed and has this year and has kind of been a point of discussion within the nerd community, I guess, whatever you want to call it, the wider general culture, I guess. But the conversation that she had kind of starts off about Doctor Who, but it quickly turns to James Bond. So in her comments, she said, "I think it's a great move for girl power that there's going to be a female Doctor Who," which, just a funny little aside, if she really watched Doctor Who, she would know that it's not the character's name. But anyway, not that I don't even watch it though. That's the thing. I don't even watch it, and I know that, which is anyway. That's just kind of funny. But
it's
because in that interview she was talking about how like, oh, I love watching Doctor Who at Christmas time, and it's like, do you though? But anyway, she said, and one day there should be a female James Bond, which is why we're talking about this.
Right.
When asked who she thinks should play or should replace Daniel Craig, she goes, I don't know who's being lined up. I read the other day that James Norton is being talked about as a possible James Bond. I think he did an interview and he said something that he'd quite like to do it. When asked if Norton was her favorite for the part, she replied, "That's a leading question. I don't know who the other candidates might be." So, nice little like segue.
Oh dear.
Should we discuss Theresa May and her oddly political statement?
Yeah, before we move on to Christoph Waltz, we'll stop here. We'll talk about Theresa May. It's very interesting comments.
Very politician-esque.
Oh my God, it's very politician, because she's like, oh, one day there will be a female James Bond. Okay, so who do you want to play James Bond? I read James Norton would be a great choice. Didn't you just say you wanted a female James Bond to play the role? Well, no, he might be. I don't know the candidate. It's just like, it's a typical like. It's just like, just speak your mind, people. Just say what you want to say. Don't be like appeasing people for the sake of appeasing people. Because chances are a lot of people are probably thinking the same thing as you, unless you're just a terrible human being. Yeah,
it's such a weird thing that like she played both sides of the argument over James Bond. It's such a weird thing that like
it was really this whole interview. This thing is very awkward. It's very just weird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, she sort of commits to the idea and then immediately is like, oh, I heard something else and I'm not going to say. And it's like, they clearly asked you who you wanted to play James Bond because you mentioned a female James Bond. And
right. It's not like they were like, yeah. It's not like they were genuinely curious as to what actor you wanted. It's because you said that you wanted to see a female play James Bond that... they wanted to know, who would be your choice? Charlize Theron? Is that who you want? Like, stuff like that. it's just like, give your honest answer. I don't know. It's like that's really all I have to say on it, other than it was just a very awkward kind of interview. But it does raise the question, should there be a female James Bond? And I know we have some thoughts on this, but before we give our thoughts, I think Christoph Waltz makes a few statements regarding that.
Guest.
So
special guest Christoph Waltz, close personal friend of the show. When he was asked for his thoughts on a female James Bond while promoting his latest film, Downsizing, Waltz told Mr. Porter, which is like a publication, not a person, despite what the name sounds like.
There was not actually a Mr. Porter. It is a publication.
Yeah, and so anyway, he said when he was asked about a female Bond, he said, why? Because Oriana Fallaci, who is a Italian feminist writer, I guess, said so. Come on. Have your own movie if you want. Why does it have to be James Bond? Why? What would her name be? Jemima? My answer is decidedly not. So Christoph Waltz took a very hard stand on this. He took
a stand, but as opposed to what we just heard, it sounded like it was his honest to God opinion on it. True. He gave his honest opinion.
No, I totally agree. I think the fact that it was completely unfiltered is very odd. He's going to take heat for this. Absolutely.
He probably will. But you know what? I feel that there is some validity to what he's saying. And we were talking about this before the show.
Yes. Yeah.
Isn't it kind of like degrading in a way for a character who has always been portrayed as male to just say, oh, well, the best way for progress is to have a female play a character traditionally played by a man? Instead, what they should do, if instead of doing all of that, they should have a female character, whether it's a 00 agent or her own franchise or something like that, and build her up to be her own thing. That way she is very much like a female, a hero. It's not, she's not bogged down by the history of the traditional male playing the role or something like that. There's a lot of I don't know. You said it best. I can't remember what you were saying before the show, but I mean, I can't remember the exact things I was saying, but we were talking about that like being degrading. I think my thought on the matter is similar to what you were just saying, in that I think it is a little offensive. I think it's a little offensive not to men, not to James Bond, as a character. I think it's offensive to women to say, oh, well, the only way to make women a legitimate and viable action star is to assume a male role. Yes, exactly.
And that's how I feel about like changing James Bond's race as well. I feel like it's a little offensive to say, well, the only way people will accept a black action hero is if he assumes a typically white action role. You know what I mean? It's like, no,
right.
Let a character have his own. Let a black character have his own history. Let a women character have their own history. I mean,
look at
we've seen.
I was just gonna say, look at Luther. Speaking of Idris Elba, because he's always brought up in terms of like being James Bond and stuff like that. Yeah. Luther, he's Idris Elba is Luther. He is the character, and the show is incredibly successful. People love it. People love the character. So it's not like it can't be done. I know, totally they are capable of having their own of leading their own franchises, and I feel like it almost means more to these groups of people for the person to be leading it, to be for it to be like their own thing, something that they can be proud of, not like necessarily something that's was established and is now transformed into something else. I don't know, but
no, I totally agree. I think it's interesting because you're taking imagine Luther could have easily been a Sherlock Holmes show, right? It's very, it's one of those detective shows that there's so many detective shows that take notes from Sherlock Holmes, and it's one of them. And it's interesting to me because I feel like that show would have been unnecessary. It's a great show. It's well written. It's exciting. But if they had just, instead of calling it Luther, they had slapped Sherlock Holmes' name on it, I feel like there would have been such an unnecessary backlash to it because it was unnecessarily sort of cribbing that that brand essentially. And
Right, well,
why put that burden on the show? Like, Luther is a great show on its own merits. Why does it need to borrow Sherlock Holmes' name?
Exactly.
And it's like, Idris Elba is a great and again, I know there are going to be plenty of counter arguments to this, and I accept that. There's no way I'm going to convince certain people who think a certain way.
No, I mean, it's just a different way of looking at things.
But it's like, Idris Elba is a great actor, and he's a great action actor on top of that. And as he would be, yes, if in a world where James Bond is not, who he is, he has all the traits to make a decent James Bond, but no one's ever going to give it a chance. It's
not like I'm saying that, like, these things can't be tampered with. Sure, you can take risks, you can do such and such things, but I feel like like with the female Ghostbusters or like the female Oceans thing.
Yes.
Why does it need to have Ocean's 8 attached to it? You know what I'm saying? Why can't it just be its own thing and people can look at it and be like, oh, so they're essentially doing like the like a kind of like a female version of the Ocean's movies, but it's its own thing. What's the problem with properties having their own identity anymore? Everything has to be based on something. And I feel like for these groups that, want to be recognized, like this is what I was getting to earlier, it means more to them if they're if the properties are original, because it's like, okay, we've got our thing now let's really push for this and let's make it into the next great franchise.
I agree, and it taps on many problems going on in Hollywood, including sort of the dependency on IPs to like established IPs to really for market success, I guess. I think it's kind of a shame, because I know the counter argument to what I just said before, what we've been saying is that, well, yeah, there's going to be backlash, but that's the backlash is the reason we need this, because we need to sort of pave the way for progress and push back against the bigotry.
I totally understand that.
I totally understand that. I think it's not so much that I think, oh, we shouldn't do a female James Bond because there'll be backlash and it's just not worth the trouble.
No, that's not why I'm saying this.
I think where I'm coming from, where I think you're coming from too, is I think in order to create a world in which that backlash isn't even a thing anymore, is to sort of just forge your own path and create your own properties. I think like things like I'm thinking of the Hunger Games as an example of like an original idea. I mean, it came from a book, but the book was written before that.
Yeah.
It was an original character that Susan Collins created, and it's her own thing, and then she just sort of blew up. It's not like people won't, like, Katniss Everdeen is has been quite an influential character, considering she was only just created like maybe a decade ago. People know who she is, which is really,
and it means a lot to young girls who are like, growing up with this figure.
And it's not like
that isn't based off of something that used to be a man or used to be whatever. She is an original female, a strong female character strong female character that has faults of her own, and she's not she's not just a perfect person. And I think like any like things that we take advantage of, take for granted, I guess I should say, with male action stars, like we've gone to the point where we can have complicated, not idealistic male action stars, but for women, and it's like they either have to be perfect and strong or they're weak. And I think Katniss finds that nice balance of being strong but also flawed and complicated. Well, we were talking about this too. You bring up the Hunger Games and Katniss. Atomic Blonde. Yeah. It's basically like a female version of John Wick, only a little bit more espionage, I will say. It has more spy elements to it than a John Wick film. Actually, I would go as far as to say it's like a harder version of like a James Bond film, and people really dug it. people dug it because it was an original IP, and was able to be its own thing, was able to incorporate the own styles, was able to incorporate the strongness and the sexuality of the main character, who is very much a woman. You know what I'm saying? Like she is woman in not only like the fact that she is, but like in the way that the character is written, you know what I'm saying? Like they didn't have to, like, it's not like this was written as a man and then like, oh, Charlize Theron actually might be a better role. Like it was, you know what I'm getting at here.
Yeah, and I think coming back to Bond, since we've strayed a bit from that. We have discussion, but coming back to Bond,
just kind of put a cap on the Atomic Blonde thing. It's like, it's not that, like, people will go watch that stuff. I don't think there's a question of people not wanting to go out to it, because Atomic Blonde got great reviews, got great praise. Charlize Theron was, one of the best parts about that movie. It's just, I feel like it works better as its own thing, not necessarily as...
It's not weighed down by a ton of baggage, and
right, exactly,
which allows it to be its own thing. Which, like, by not weighing down the movie with all this controversy over it being a female James Bond, it was able to deliver on its promises without the burden of expectation or of people just being overly critical. It was able to just be its own thing, and that by having more movies like that, by having more female characters, action characters like that, it's going to create a world where one day we're not even going to think twice about it. We're going to have so many female action like characters that it's going to be like, oh yeah, that's a thing. Like, I don't know. And going back to Bond, I think on top of the fact that you reminded me when you mentioned that Charlize Theron, I can't remember her name, to be honest, which is kind of
the character. Yeah, I don't remember her name either in the movie. It's been a while since I've seen it.
It almost undermines the argument a little bit, but her character in that movie was, like you said, distinctly feminine.
Yeah,
without being like, in an earnest way, in an honest way, in an empowering way.
Yes, yes.
With James Bond is, like, everyone talks about how, we can just gender switch these characters, it doesn't really mean anything. James Bond is such a more so than a lot of characters, is very much a distinctly masculine archetype.
Right, right.
And he originally started off as like a very masculine power fantasy, and as time has gone on, he's almost become a critique on masculinity in a lot of ways. Like, especially Daniel Craig's tenure, there's been a lot of sort of critiques on 007's behavior. And even like you have things in like GoldenEye when M, like Judi Dench as M for the first time, a female M, which is a character that wasn't really masculine in any way. It was just an ancillary character. Berates Bond for his misogyny, and I think if you want to have a discussion about I mentioned this last time I talked about it. If you want to have a discussion about James Bond and his relationship with women and what this franchise's sort of relationship with women is, I think it's better to address that within the character that exists rather than just sort of putting a new wallpaper on him and saying, no, it's a woman now, so all of the sort of sexist stuff we've done in the past is okay, because we've moved on from it. I think it's far more interesting, and it's far more satisfying thematically to have the character internally reflect on his behavior rather than just sort of have the franchise sort of put up wallpaper and pretend it's all good now and it's progressive now.
And that's basically what I feel they would be doing if they made James Bond a woman, For sure. And I think the intention is noble, but I think it would undermine a lot of the distinctly not all positive, and that's the thing. Not all the masculine traits James Bond possesses are positive, and they're not all depicted. No, actually, most of them are not positive.
He's not a very positive role model in general.
No,
he's
not at all.
He's a misogynist. He's a kind of a little bit like just bigoted in general. So, I think it's far more effective if the franchise wants to if the franchise wants to appeal to those feminist critiques of James Bond, it's far more effective to do it in a narrative way than it is to just replace James Bond with a woman and call it a day. And then, again, like I just like what Christoph Waltz said, I think just create a new character. You have no baggage to deal with. You have no. You just have an opportunity to create something that is distinctly feminine and distinctly. She can be flawed in the same ways that James Bond is flawed as a man, as a woman. You know what I mean? Like it's just. I don't know. It just feels like it's missing the mark. It misses the point of James Bond in a lot of ways. At least what he's become.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know. It just feels odd. It feels like
no.
It's a very
I get where you're coming at, and I'm
know?
coming from the same place. I probably haven't articulated myself as well as you are, simply because it's just rattling out the right words. Anyways,
I probably haven't articulated myself in the right way either. I'm probably going to get death threats.
Don't you just love covering these topics?
Oh my god, yeah, like
so great,
me
very
at.
juicy. Yeah, I know. Well, let's move away from this one. I think we've kind of talked about this one a lot. If you have thoughts on it, let us know, especially in the comment section below. And we'd love to hear all your opinions on it. Are we insane for feeling this way? And we know there's people who feel differently, and we're not saying that you're wrong. We're just saying this is how we look at it, and I'm sure you'll give us reasons as to why you look at it. So it's just an interesting conversation to have. For sure. So moving on to our moving on to our final conversation, final news topic of the day. It has to deal with Barbara Broccoli and when we can expect some major, Bond announcements or news in the coming year. So speaking with the Hollywood Reporter's Awards Chatter podcast via the Spy Command, Barbara Broccoli confirmed that major decisions regarding Bond 25 will not be made until early 2018, adding that the film's director and title are, quote, still to be determined, which I believe we brought up in an earlier episode. We did mention that she was saying that we would expect some decisions to be made in early 2018, so that's really that doesn't come as a surprise. But she also confirmed that the script for Bond 25 is very much still in development under veteran Bond scribes Neil Purvis and Robert Wade, saying the following: they're busy working away trying to come up with something fantastic, which I do believe. Hopefully it is very much fantastic.
That's hard.
So then, with regards to the ongoing rumors surrounding the distribution of the Bond film, Barbara Broccoli said the following: it's exciting to be courted. We'll hopefully be making the decision earlier next year, which is in line with everything that we have been saying in regards to not only this topic, but on I believe the past episode even, right? The last episode we said Barbara Broccoli was saying that we would expect Bond announcements in 2018, early 2018.
Yeah, I think that was last episode actually. That was more of like a people was saying on her behalf. This is like directly from her.
This is coming from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So, Brody, let's get your thoughts on this final topic here.
Like what we were saying, it's not unexpected. It is interesting because we've been saying this for the longest time. We haven't got any confirmation on this. It is interesting that they are still writing the movie. Because we've said repeatedly that we
were kind of speculating that they might be done by the end of the year with like an initial draft or something.
Maybe, but I know earlier on in the year we were talking about how like everyone was speculating about what the movie's going to be about for these pitches, and we're like, they don't have a script yet. I guarantee it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I was remembering it wrong. At first we were like, okay, they're probably going to have something done by the end of the year, like yada yada. And then some like developments came in with the story, and then we were like, oh, they probably just don't have a story fleshed out quite,
which is fine, I guess, because the movie's 2 years away. So
honestly, take your time.
Exactly, yeah. And so this is good that they're taking their time. It's reassuring. It's interesting that the distribution, because we thought the distribution thing was like sort of done and dusted. It seems that she's being a bit tight-lipped about it and saying that they haven't fully finished the distribution decision yet, which is very interesting considering all of the acquisitions that have gone on with like Disney and Fox.
Right. We were talking about Annapurna and how they looked like they were going to get the Bond rights.
And they might still get, I think they might be just domestic. But it is interesting considering like all of the power moves going on. Bond is one of the only like big billion-dollar franchises that hasn't really been claimed. So this is kind of a big deal. And so I can definitely see why they're being courted. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this ends up. This could be a big deal.
It's a massive deal. I mean, a lot of things depend on this distribution. I'm not saying that Disney will be involved in any ways, but I'm just saying like we don't want Disney getting their hands on 007. Let's just put it that way.
Good Lord, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Like I said, a lot of this stuff we kind of assumed, we had mentioned on previous episodes, but it's just finally nice to get like confirmation. Yeah, decisions are still being made. You'll probably get something in early 2018. Purvis and Wade still writing the script, much like we speculated after the developments occurred. So, nice little end of the year update there from Babs. So, with
Babs.
that's about done. That about does it for this segment, this Tomorrow Never Lies segment. Let us know your thoughts and opinions on any of the comments we discussed in the comments section. Any of the topics we discussed in the comments section below. I think this might be the last Tomorrow Never Lies of the year. Am I correct?
I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, we're pretty much close to the end of the year now. We've got like, what, 7 more days?
Yeah, it's crazy. Crazy stuff. Although it hasn't been a full calendar year for the show, that will come September or August, I believe, of next year.
Something like that. Oh, Lord.
I know. Crazy stuff. But anyways, that'll do it for Tomorrow Never Lies. Moving on here. So usually how we do this show, we move on to Q Branch. We talk about like little nuggets of information that pertain to Bond, but don't pertain to the tentpole films and stuff like that. And then we do, Brother from Langley, talk about other spy stuff, and then we talk about some discussion topic.
Yeah.
Well, all that stuff you just knew, or if you just learned about it, all that stuff you know is being thrown out the window because this is a special episode. This is a Christmas special. And so we're going to be doing a little bit of end of year stuff, a little bit of Bond Christmas here, if you will. So we're going to start this thing off by talking about some of our favorite stories of the year that we have covered on the show. Just to kind of like do a recap of what we've done so far on The Words Are Not Enough, some of the topics we've discussed and whatnot, and we'll give you our thoughts on what we happen to think are our personal favorites. And then from there, we're going to be going into what we think are the best snow action sequences / set pieces in the Bond series. Bond has spent quite a bit of time on the mountains, whether it be skiing, flying a plane, as we saw in Spectre, the car on the ice in what do you call it? Living Daylights.
Daylights, yep.
And well, I guess you could also use Die Another Day for that.
You could.
Oh my gosh. So any really wintry snow action sequence we're gonna discuss there, and then to finish out the show, what better than to have some little On Her Majesty's Secret Service appreciation? We're just gonna talk about why we love that film so much. It's not going to be a full-on discussion. We'll save that for a later date, but just kind of like it is the James Bond fans' Christmas film, so might as well touch on it a little bit given the holiday season. So that's how the rest of the show is going to work. And Brody, I'm going to let you start this one off because I always do, and because it just feels natural since I've been talking so long now. Brody, what are some of your favorite stories we've covered this year in the James Bond world?
The endless Denis Villeneuve rumor mill.
Oh my god,
kind of funny, just because it amounted to nothing.
It really did.
That was kind of amusing in retrospect. It just drove us insane that how like every week there was something new, and then suddenly, not doing it. Like
it's like well, maybe he is. Well, maybe he's not. Well, no, he is.
In a similar vein, I really liked the Roger Moore David Bowie story.
Oh yes, thank you for bringing that one up. That was brilliant.
That was a real funny story. Anecdote.
Well, it was funny because it's not like it was a news story. It wasn't really development. It was like, well, here's an account that here's like an encounter that happened between Roger Moore and David Bowie, and it kind of goes down the way you would think, I guess,
Yeah, it's just such a delightful weird story that was kind of fun
Yeah.
to talk about. I also really like talking about, I guess, in a more like concrete sense.
Yeah.
In terms of like what I would like to see, I really liked the Monica Bellucci story. That's my favorite story that I liked.
Yeah, you really latched on to that one.
I really love that.
And it was nice. I think we had a nice discussion regarding, Bond girls in that segment, given her age and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think like in terms of stories we've seen this year, of all the rumors we've seen for like potential Bond things that could happen in Bond 25, I love that, and I really want that to be true more than anything else we've seen.
Yeah.
So,
for sure.
I mean, that or maybe like Christopher Nolan, I really want that to be true too. So,
that's a perfect segue into my favorite stories.
There you go.
I really any time that Christopher Nolan was brought up in regards to potential director to helm Bond 25, I was all on board. In case you don't know, Christopher Nolan is my favorite director. Huge inspiration just for some of my creative endeavors and such. And I don't know, it's just really, no one makes a film quite like Christopher Nolan does, and given his reverence for the franchise, and how you've seen it emulated in stuff like The Dark Knight Rises, that beginning airplane hijacking sequence. It's just a no-brainer. The guy needs to do a Bond film, and so just kind of seeing that it's is kind of coming to fruition, that it will probably happen, is very exciting for me. Will it be Bond 25? Who knows? It very well may not be, but I think that out of all of the rumors we've discussed, Christopher Nolan is being courted, he's being eyed, he's in discussions. It's very evident that he will do one in the near future, and that's just very exciting for me.
I agree, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, really, that's the biggest takeaway from all the rumors, is that all of the discussions that he's had with the people at Eon, Barbara Broccoli, all of them, it shows that they want him. It's just a matter of when and scheduling, naturally. The other one that I really liked and I thought was pretty funny had to do with James Bond going into space, the whole Elon Musk thing.
Yes.
I just found it to be really, really funny, and I thought we had a nice discussion off of that.
Oh my god!
How it kind of also like spiraled into like Elon Musk may actually be involved in the movie. I was just kind of like, what is going on? It was crazy.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say that ties into like maybe possibly my two favorite like this won't apply to anyone except us because no one else sees our notes. But of the notes headings that we've had, we always like sort of put these little sensationalist headings to like every note. And my two favorite of the year were I can't remember the exact words, but it was like the Elon Musk one was like, Daniel Craig loves the idea of Bond going into space. It's something like, it was like,
oh no, I have it right here. It's Bond 25 is getting galactic with Daniel Craig, and Daniel Craig loves it.
Yeah, that's hilarious. That one, and also the something to do with Moneypenny being prohibited from having sex with Bond.
Oh yeah, that was in the same show. That was episode. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know about like everything we're talking about right now, go to episode 7 of The Words Are Not Enough. We have
episode 007. What an episode!
We have a wild discussion just about that. That's where the Monica Bellucci story is. That's where the Christopher Nolan rumors are. That's where the James Bond getting galactic. I don't think the Moneypenny one is there. The Moneypenny one, I believe, was episode number 8, and that was dealing with the fact that who was it who made comments on that? Was it someone made comments on the fact that James Bond was banned from having a romantic relationship with
it was I just opened it up here. Yeah, it was an anonymous LA source, and the title was Daniel Craig banned from fucking Moneypenny. Which is, it's funny that you said Daniel Craig is like Daniel Craig wants to have sex with the character, which is
oh, I know, it's racy titles here
in the episode 7. Since we're talking about these headings now, this is a little a preview into like the insanity that comes with these notes.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Daniel Craig wants Monica Bellucci, aka MILF City, to return as Bond girl. Oh, good lord!
Oh my gosh, these titles. What are you gonna do?
We also, whenever we send each other, whenever I send you the audio for the notes, I always come up with something ridiculous to say, which is quite fun that no one sees except us. But
it's just nice little secrets there. Going back to the stories though, I think one of the most fascinating little tidbits that we covered was the Man with the Golden Gun manuscript, because you talked about a lot of stuff that was also on episode number 7 and 8 were juicy episodes. Let me tell you, on episode 8 we talked about you actually talked about a lot about Fleming. It was a nice Fleming discussion, and then talking about his writing process, how the Man with the Golden Gun kind of shaped out, and then just like those manuscripts were so fascinating. Excuse me. Just for any Bond fan, to be honest. So if you haven't read those manuscripts, I would encourage you to go read them, because it's very cool stuff there.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that. That was one of my favorite to talk about, honestly. I love talking about Fleming. Obviously, he's been dead for quite a while, so there's not a ton of news about him. Yeah. But every now and then, when something comes up that's Fleming related, I can't resist getting into it, getting deep into it. So, yeah, that was another good story.
Yeah, it was cool. So, the book covers, the new covers. Yeah. That was really cool. I mean, it wasn't like a big thing, but and then I think the last story that I really like, this is going all the way back to the beginning of September. This is episode 2. The whole James Bond rights debacle. We first covered it back in episode 2, the beginning of September. We were talking about, is it going to be Apple? Is it going to be Amazon? Because they were really taking aim at Bond. We're like, we're going to get these rights. We're going to go for it. And we talked about the possibilities and what it could mean if Bond ended up at a company like Apple or Amazon. It's all going to be like streaming stuff. So that was a nice discussion that we had there. But then also the Annapurna one, which I loved. I loved the idea of Annapurna being the studio that gets the Bond rights, because they're small. I feel like they would let Eon do their thing, let Bond be what it is, and they wouldn't, push it in these insane directions that it doesn't need to push in. So that was kind of like it was a nice story to cover, because I felt like it ended up in the right place if they are in fact going to go with Annapurna.
I'd agree. Yeah, I think I really liked how I think what you were saying, I agree, very conclusive, which was nice. We don't get too much. We haven't so far gotten too much like conclusiveness with a lot of these stories, just because a lot of them are rumors. So it was nice to get a story that was legitimate and then also led to a pretty nice outcome. While we're talking about stories for the year, let's pat ourselves on the back a little bit, because we've been right on the cusp there with a couple of stories.
I have to say, we are by no means legitimate. We don't have any sources. We don't do. I think we just have good timing. We get really lucky because a lot of the stuff that we talk about, we drop the episode and then later on that week it kind of blows up, and it's just kind of crazy how we are a little ahead of the curve here. It's fun to see your predictions, pan out into big stories, and to see the stuff that you talked about, that you covered, actually be covered by like big sites like the Hollywood Reporter, Variety, stuff like that. It's kind of just cool to see you getting a little bit ahead of the curve there. So, not saying that we are, pros at this by any means. I just think we get pretty lucky. The story,
but we've been pretty lucky with our timing, which has been fun. And if you've been listening, welcome to that.
Welcome to the luck factor. We are the words are not enough, and we are a legitimate James Bond source.
There you go.
That is a lie. We're just fans who love Bond and like talking about it. Hopefully, we can become a legitimate source in the future. But anyways, Brody, do you have any last minute stories that you want to touch on that you maybe forgot about?
No, I think we've got a couple stories we didn't end up doing that I kind of liked, but mainly because they weren't even stories. They were just like
they were so small. Yeah,
they're so small, but not even just that. I think this will give you another insight into how we sort of how we sort of work on this show. Usually, Griffin and I will talk for maybe a couple of hours before, at least either the day before or like before the show, just to sort of like hash out what we want to discuss. And we end up sometimes for the Shaken but Heard segment, we'll find like an op-ed or something about James Bond that we either agree with or disagree with, and we'll discuss talking about it. And we end up having really interesting discussions, but we end up not talking about it on the show because we don't think it's we either don't want to seem like we're calling someone out, or
well, I thought you did discuss that one though. There was one op-ed.
I did discuss one.
Yeah.
It's the only one we've done, but which was interesting, even though it was by myself, so it wasn't really too much of a discussion. But there was one we were going to talk about, but it was so ridiculous that we didn't end up talking about it. Which was it was one about Nightfire, which I thought was
that was
they were talking about retooling the entire franchise to be like Nightfire, which is an amazing game you should play.
You should, if you've never played it. Definitely worth a
but
shot.
This article was talking about like how the whole franchise is in dire straits and needs to be
it was a really
in
weird...
accordance to Nightfire, the video game from 20 years ago or 15 years ago or whatever, and which was very odd. It was a very strange article, and we never ended up talking about it, but I think like that was one of my favorite things when we were just talking about it in private, which was quite funny.
Right, for sure.
But if you want to see us just like tear apart op-eds we don't like,
if there's
terrible hot takes out there, we'd be happy to do it.
Right. If you want to hear us discuss really anything, I mean, you can feel free to like drop it in the comments section, send us an email or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a nice cap on the story. Some of our favorite stories of the year. I look forward to what next year brings as far as Bond news, because I know we're going to get a lot of it. It's the year before the film comes out, so you can look for a lot of Bond news, and you'll bet your ass that we're going to be covering it. So stay on the lookout for that. And normally that would seem like the end of a show, but we're only just getting started. Well, kind of.
Yeah.
we're about halfway through. So the best thing to do, the Christmas special. You know, it's Christmas time. It's snowing. It may or may not be wherever you are. So we felt that, like, you know, one of the best things that we could do is talk about some of the best snow action sequences in the Bond franchise, because there's a lot of them. You know, James Bond likes to spend a decent amount of time out there in the bitter cold. He's a big fan of skiing. Big fan.
He is a big fan. He loves his snow. He loves wallowing around in it. Or frolicking rather with his bride to be. All that stuff.
Yes, very 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 sad. Very very sad things. But anyways, so let's just kind of free form conversation. Just talk about some of our favorite snow action sequences in the series. I'm going to go first. I will actually go first on this one. I know this is crazy. It's absolutely crazy because I never go first on these.
It's breaking new ground.
We're breaking ground here. The typical response would be to go with the ski chases and Majesties, and we'll get to those in a little bit. I want to give a quick shout out to the White Knight, the plane sequence at the beginning of Tomorrow Never Dies, because I think that is one of my personal, for me personally, that is one of my favorite intros to a Bond film.
Easily. That was one of my favorite opening scenes. Yeah, in general, it's amazing.
It has you on the edge of your seat. It doesn't really start with Bond. You don't actually see him until like, I don't know, like a couple of minutes into it, like after we've gone back to M and the rest of them in the control room.
And he gets a cool little intro with like the cigarette and then like socking the guy in the face.
Oh, that was brilliant. And then he punches the guy in the face. Oh, in David Arnold's score. And then the whole sequence when he actually gets in the plane, he's like shooting up the whole thing, and then he finally takes off. It's like it's one of those sequences that just has you on the edge of your seat the whole time. And I think I have a little bit more reverence for this particular sequence because I played the PlayStation 1 Tomorrow Never Dies game quite a bit. And that was one of my favorite levels in that game was the hijacking of the plane, taking the pictures of the missiles and stuff like that, and then eventually getting in the plane, shooting literally everything, taking off, and then going into the opening credits. It was a fun little sequence to play in the game, and then finally when I got around to watching the movie, because I actually played the game before I watched the movie, weirdly enough, I was like, this is just as awesome as it was, as I remembered when I was playing it in the game. And while it's not really a snow action sequence, it does take place in the winter in Eastern Europe, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just such a badass sequence. Great. Little opening for Pierce there in an otherwise kind of safe movie.
Yeah, that's true. It is a very safe movie, and there's a surprisingly bold way to open it, which is
right. It's crazy.
I think it does what all good opening sequences do. It tells a self-contained story within whatever, like the 10 minutes that you've got. Right. This whole story had like a complete narrative arc of being not necessarily a whole story, but it had a complete arc of being like. It had like peaks and valleys in terms of like oh, Bond has to stop the missiles. Oh no, now they've launched a rocket from the ship. Oh, there's escalating stakes, and then like Bond. Oh, he's taken off. He's saved the day. He's got the rockets. Oh no, there's an assassin in the cockpit. He's like, it just kept ramping it up in like in a way a good action scene
every
should.
Turn. Well, and then you see the MI6, they launch the missile at him, and he's got to, like, get out of there before the whole base blows up, and I'm like, oh my god, how is he going to get out now? Like,
it's just so incredible. And then on top of that, it also sets up the naval Dakota and Henry Gupta. So it sets up like plot elements from the film while also being its own little thing.
Which is kind of a staple of Bond films now. They kind of have little nuggets of stuff that pop up later on in the films.
But in terms of like it's like in contrast with like I'm trying to think of an example of a bad opening credits, but there aren't like too many bad ones.
There really aren't too many. That is one thing I will say for Bond is usually the opening action sequences are pretty thrilling.
They're always excellent. But like, in terms of like, whereas with Spectre, which is a great opening title sequence, but with Spectre's opening credit sequence, the entire plot is sort of. The entire action scene is directly tied to what will be a major part of the plot. Well, you say the
same thing about Quantum of Solace. That is directly.
Yeah, Quantum of Solace is exactly the same. Yeah. Even Skyfall to an extent, exactly the same. Whereas with this one was completely standalone. It just had it set up, but while also setting up an element.
Yeah.
Whereas some of the older ones, like the one in Moonraker. No, actually, Moonraker is a bad example. I don't know why I jumped to Moonraker because that has the hijacking.
Because you love Moonraker. You just love it. You can't help but talk about it.
That had the hijacking of the shuttle. I'm pretty sure that was part of the pre-title sequence. So,
right.
Was that pre-title sequence? I can't even remember. I don't think I think it was. But the opening action scene in Octopussy has nothing to do with the movie.
Yeah.
And so this one has nothing to do with the movie while also it has its cake and eats it too, which is kind of fun.
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of funny, this is a little bit of a tangent. Not a tangent, just a little quick side here. I think the Brosnan films, minus Die Another Day, their opening sequences got better as they went along,
I think so too. I really love the hovercraft chase from
I do
Die
too.
Day.
I just don't think it's better than the opening from The World Is Not Enough. That's why I said
right. I think
kind
you're
of
right.
excluding
I think it's probably in terms of ranking the Brosnan opening title sequences. It would be GoldenEye. In terms of in ascending order, GoldenEye, Die Another Day, Tomorrow Never Dies, Well Is Not Enough.
Yeah. So that's why I said excluding Die Another Day, the opening sequences get better as the movies are released.
For sure,
But anyways, okay, so I've given you one of my favorites. That was very long tangent about White Knight, but what's one of yours?
Gotta give a shout out to my boy T-Dalt with his only snow action scene, which is the entire chase sequence in The Living Daylights is really fun.
I love that one.
Yeah, so he starts off, he's in the Aston Martin, and he uses like the few optional extras to take out the cop car, and then the police, like an army comes. And
like what the hell?
Because it's like they're in like the Soviet bloc, so it's a bunch of Russian like policemen with a tank and shit. And so then he like self-destructs the car, and they get away, and they have to use the cello case to like slide down the thing and then like skin around. And I just think like the whole thing is so much fun. Like the Bond on the ice with the car, and then the guy with the mortar like launching at them. It's just such a fun scene. The music, John Barry's got like this like synthy version of the James Bond theme going. It's just so much fun, and it's kind of comical without being. It's like the kind of comedy I think Timothy Dalton was able to do, because he was the straight man to the comedy. You know what I mean? Like he had a complete stone face reaction to everything going on, but it was kind of absurd what was going on. Like they had to ride in a cello case and steer with the cello, and like it gets shot, and like just like all sorts of things. They literally slide across the border into Austria, and I think that's like one of my favorite things about that sequence is honestly like, and not only like how just like badass it is at times, but just like the progression of it is just kind of witty in a way. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And like it is funny because he had such a big deal with going back to go rescue her cello, and then it ended up being like he has that one line, like, "I'm glad I insisted you brought that cello," and it's just great. It is very like sort of. It's nice that they set it up, because you don't see like setups like that for action scenes so much. For sure. But yeah, it's just generally a fun scene. And my boy T-Dalt.
I know you had to give him a shout out somewhere, and it sure as hell was not going to be in License to Kill, because I don't even think they touch snow in that movie.
There is no snow in License to Kill, unless you count like cocaine.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Oh, I guess it's back to me then. Give you an opening sequence. I'm gonna go classic on this one. This is just like it should be on any sort of list of the best James Bond snow action sequences, and that's I think it's the opening, right, from The Spy Who Loved Me, with the parachute. When he's doing that is the opening. Yeah. He's doing the giant free fall, and then the parachute. He pulls it last minute. I mean, it's iconic. Like what can incredible. You say? It's such a not only is the ski chase beforehand like pretty cool, but that jump. The
big stunt makes it,
That stunt is incredible. That stunt is ahead of its time, really.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely insane. If you go and watch like some of the behind the scenes stuff and how they did it, it's kind of shocking that they even let him do it. Yeah. It's breathtaking, and going back to like, the actual ski sequence itself, when he's flipping off, like doing a backflip off of the ramp.
Right,
that's kind of,
right.
And then turns around, has the projectile in his sort of his ski pole. It's all just so much fun, so ridiculous and great. And then you have that Marvin Hamlish's like 70s James Bond music playing. And it's
the music was a nice accompaniment there.
It was really cool. It kind of felt like a disco, like a little roller disco going on.
Yeah, it did. It was like, Bond's in the 70s, even though he's been in the 70s for a few movies. But but
it is like, oh my god, it's a great scene. You can't not mention it, like you said.
You can't. It is so iconic. I mean, it's not only a staple of within the franchise. It is a staple for people who aren't the biggest Bond fans. They know that sequence. They know him pulling the parachute in with a giant Union Jack on the back. I mean, it's been mocked in Austin Powers. It's been
oh my god, it's mocked. It's iconic.
It's like referenced in everything. But I think the thing I love about it is that the free fall, he keeps you in suspense for so long, and it's like at the very last minute he pulls the chute, and then it goes in the opening title sequence, and I'm just like, that is fucking awesome. And this is coming from someone who, I'm not the biggest fan of the Roger Moore films. That is like one of the best moments in a Bond film, period. I get like so giddy every time I see it. I'm just like, oh fuck yeah, that is so awesome.
And if you want to see like a kind of a funny it's not even really like related to it in any kind of substantial way. But there's an Alan Partridge like skit where because like Steve Coogan famously loves The Spy Who Loved Me, and Roger Moore Bond films in general. And there's one bit he's playing Alan Partridge, and someone tapes over his copy of The Spy Who Loved Me, and so he makes all his friends sit down, and he like blow for blow reenacts the opening scene in the middle of his living room. So he's like, he reenacts the ski chase and the opening credit, like opening title sequence, like shot for shot, and it is so funny. I'm pretty sure he improvised it because it just didn't seem scripted at all, and it's just really funny.
Right.
So partially now, I mean, I've seen The Spy Who Loved Me a million times, but part of me now, when I watch it, I sort of think of Alan Partridge doing like the and he's falling. Oh no, James Bond has died.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Dead. And it's like, it's just so funny. And then he does like his own little rendition of the James Bond theme.
Yeah.
It's just so funny. So go watch that if you haven't.
For real.
Oh my god. But
Good
anyway,
stuff.
I guess it's my turn to pick.
Yeah, give us another pick here. Give us another pick.
Oh, there's so many. I kind of want to go with an off the wall. No, is it really off the wall though? I don't even know if this is like a weird pick or not. I think this movie just doesn't get enough recognition in general. But the ski chase in For Your Eyes Only is quite thrilling. In that
I was hoping you were going to bring that one up.
It's like an entire sequence essentially, because it's not just a ski chase. It's like Bond is being pursued by I can't remember his name. The guy with the hexagonal glasses. This is gonna bug me. I'm quite embarrassed that I don't remember his name.
It's okay. It's Christmas. We'll forgive you.
There we go. That's my one wish for Christmas. Anyway, so he's being pursued, and I really like the bit where they're on foot, and he like sort of Bond ducks into the elevator. He goes up the ramp to the ski ramp at the Olympic Training Center. Yeah, and he goes there. He's being pursued, and they're in the elevators, and it's quite tense. And then Bond escapes. He does like the big ski flip, and then it becomes like a ski chase where he's being chased by the henchman and the big. I actually don't even remember his name either. The big German guy, the big German Olympian. He gets chased, and
wait, I think he's Soviet, isn't he?
I'm pretty sure he's German, but he's working for the Russians.
Okay, that's all right.
But anyway, he's he's being chased, and like the best bit of the sequence is when he picks up the motorcycle and throws it at Bond. It's just one of those like insane like shows of strength that I wasn't really expecting when I first watched it. It was just kind of
right.
I just remembered his name. Locke. The guy with the hexagonal glasses is Locke.
Right.
In any case, that whole scene is just really, really fun. I like how they incorporated a lot of the Olympic sports into it because it was being filmed at the time of the Winter Olympics. So like,
I love the part where he does the he like does the jump. He does like some sort of jump, and he like skis across the table.
Yeah. It's just like the whole scene is just a lot of fun. Yeah. There's a couple of really cool snow sequences, I guess, in this, like the bit where the motorcycles with the spikes in them, try to attack Melina Havelock, and Bond like sort of dispatches with them, like sends them careening through a flower shop window and stuff like that. There's a lot of like really, really fun stuff going on in there, but that whole scene I think is underappreciated. I really love, more so than the action, I just really love that opening bit where Locke is pursuing him. I didn't expect it to be as intense as it was, but it was quite like the tension, and there's really very little music in that scene. It's just, you can just hear like the diegetic noise of the Olympic fanfare in the background. And then the audience like the scores and scores of people sort of talking, and surprisingly effective like suspense for like a Bond movie that isn't famous for being, and like isn't really well liked or well known. I think unjustly, but so that's my next pick, I guess. I really like that scene.
It's a great pick. I mean, it was going to be mentioned one way or the other. It's on my list for sure. I've got two here that I want to talk about. But I think I'll go more cliche and traditional first, and then I'll save the edgy one for last, unless you cover it.
There's an edgy one.
That's Lazenby in Majesty's, both sea skeins when they're escaping Blofeld's lair in the Swiss Alps.
Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, this is the greatest Bond ski chase out of the entire franchise, and probably
Easily,
one of the best snow action sequences, if not the best out of the entire franchise. I think it's the best
ski scene I've ever seen in a film. It's just
it's so good. Well, and I love his outfit too. The royal blue, the ski outfit, the giant goggles. It's just so well done, you know. And even though Lazenby himself isn't really doing a lot of the skiing, as you can see, the green screen, the choreography that the stunt team is doing is unbelievable. I have to say, I think my favorite part of the ski chase, because it's kind of separated into like a few different parts, right? It's like there's like a daytime one, there's like one with Blofeld, there's like one at night. The one at night I think is so intense, and that's why I particularly am more drawn to that one, and that's when he first escapes. Yeah,
that's like because that has a really cool scene where he trips when his ski gets busted. And he trips that one guy and to get his skis, and they end up like tussling around in the snow. And it's one of the other instances in the movie where you really see the physicality that George Lazenby brings, because he's like
for real, really
like just throwing hands at this guy, and it was a really cool, intense scene. The guy ends up going off the cliff. And
I was about to bring that up. The one where the guy goes off the cliff. I always remember that one.
Mm-hmm. And it's just a really genuinely well executed scene, which makes sense because it was directed. That whole movie is directed by Peter Hunt, who was previously an editor, and so I think he just sort of knew how to construct that action scene. I mean, it was probably a lot of second unit as well, but I don't know. I think his expertise in editing really comes across in that movie in general.
I would, especially during the ski sequences.
But especially in the ski sequences, there's a lot of like really. You can tell someone who understands how to construct an action scene was at the helm, and which is really cool.
No, for sure. And what better place than the Swiss Alps? Seriously, like it's
god, yeah.
Beautiful stuff there.
In the second chase, even though it's like the lesser of the two, I guess. In the one where Blofeld's pursuing, in the one where his henchmen are sort of pursuing, because Blofeld's not directly there.
Right. Well, there's the one where they get in the bobsled.
Oh, that one's directly at the end too. Yeah. In the one,
there's like three like winter action sequences that are kind of like, you know, it's like the one at night they hide in the barn, the one during the day when they're chasing them, and then the one towards the end, like in the bobs where they get in the bobsled.
Yeah,
and
there's even that car chase. There's a little car chase where they end up on the ice rink.
This movie, like after they escape the lair, this movie like dials it up to 11 and just doesn't let go.
There's a lot of action in it. It's like, which is surprising when people say like, oh, it's so slow and boring. It's like, excuse me.
Well, we'll get into this a little bit when we talk more about Majesties on our own.
I really like how in that in the daytime one, I really like that the guy who goes into the snow plow.
Oh my god, dude! And you gotta think, for its time, that is so brutal.
That was the blood and guts is like spinning out, and then George Lazenby's just like, he had a lot of guts. And it was,
that was one of my favorite lines. That's a great one-liner.
It's a great one-liner. Oh my god, that whole sequence, all the ski stuff is really great, and there isn't a lot of, like you mentioned, the rear projection stuff. Surprisingly, for a movie of its time, there isn't a ton of it.
No, there isn't. Really, the only time you see it is when you get the close-up of Lazenby.
Yeah, and I mean, even then, like, I compare that to the skiing in any of Roger Moore's films.
Oh my god, it looks 10 times better. Yeah,
there's a lot of like sort of rear, like, you can see a ton of rear projection in those because they wanted a lot of close-ups, and Roger Moore wasn't doing the stunts.
Yeah,
so it's like, I think it's interesting, like, just how for like a movie that's made in like 1969, or 68, 69. It was probably made in 68, but that considering that a film of that time still holds up visual effects wise, because there isn't a ton of like trickery, is really a testament to the practical effects the Bond franchise, the stunts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
The picture that like one guy, I remember watching the behind the scenes. Like one guy is legitimately skiing backwards, holding a camera to capture the stunt, and like they're going through trees and stuff, and he's skiing backwards with a camera, which is incredibly heavy. And then like he's also skiing without poles because he's got to hold the thing. So like just skiing backwards without poles, holding a massive camera, an expensive piece of hardware. It's insane, and like the fact that they pulled it off is insane. And even like even the stunt guys who are in the scene, they don't have poles either because they're holding machine guns. So
right.
And then the guy who was stunt double for Lazenby. At one point, he gets his ski shot off, and so he's skiing on one foot, and it's just like they did that. They did that for real, and it's insane.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. Like the behind the scenes stuff for the stunts on that movie is ahead of its time. It truly is ahead of its time. Like
really, yeah. And like the fact that no one got like severely, like fatally injured is crazy too.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's give you one more. Give me one more action scene.
And then, one more. Okay, let's see.
Or actually, no. You get two more because I got one more, so that means you get two more. Yeah.
Oh boy, I'm trying to think of what we've mentioned already. I mean, this isn't really a favorite, but we're sort of like scraping the barrel now. But well, I think I know which one you're going to mention, so I won't mention it. Because it's inevitable that it'll come up. But
do you think it will really?
The one you're going to mention, I think, is. I mean, there's not too many left that we haven't discussed. So I
guess that's true.
I think. Okay, actually, there's two more that you could mention. So I'm going to just go out on a limb, and I'm going to mention the one that. Never mind. I'm going to mention the one that I think you're going to say because there's a couple others that I wasn't even considering. But. The World Is Not Enough. The ski sequence in The World Is Not Enough.
Yeah, that's mine. All right, you don't get another one because you took mine. All right. This is your last one.
But yeah, that's fine. The other one I was going to mention is like the ski scene in not a very good one, but the one in the beginning of the pre-title sequence of A View to a Kill.
Yeah, no, definitely not mentioning that.
That one's a little goofy because it has like the Beach Boys randomly in it.
Yeah, weird.
But no, anyway, this one, The World Is Not Enough. This is a pretty cool one because it has like the heli skis, like these.
It's really so. It is such a 90s action scene.
Oh my god, it's balls to the wall. It's actually the one I see referenced a lot more often than I would expect. Just because I guess. It's contemporary. It's one of the only contemporary ski sequences we've gotten. So, when people think of a Bond ski sequence, they think of this one now, I guess. People of that generation.
Yeah. I just think his outfit is so funny. Like, it looks kind of feminine. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
oh my god. I never thought that before, but now I'm not gonna be able to not think it.
He looks like he's wearing a woman's jumpsuit. I'm dead serious. Like,
I mean, it's going to inflate, right? So it's
maybe James Bond really should be played by a woman.
Maybe that's what it is. Know. Yeah, he's been wearing the gear for years.
Yeah, for real.
But yeah, no, this scene's pretty cool. It's just for its inventiveness and something interesting about the score for this scene, because once again, Wasn't Enough is one of David Arnold's best scores, but something I didn't realize until fairly recently, a couple of years ago, this scene was partially composed by Garbage. Like
the action scene was composed by Garbage and David Arnold.
David Arnold and Garbage worked together to come up with a cool ski action scene like score.
Holy
which
crap!
Is really really cool.
Good stuff. That's
and, like a further testament to what happens when you let David Arnold pick who he collaborates with for these Bond movies instead of forcing him to work with like Sheryl Crow. But sorry, that was like very passive aggressive. But
it's okay. I know you got hate. You got hate in your
heart. Yeah, it's a really cool like different sounding score. Interesting idea with the ski, like the Paris skiers, and just an interesting, intense scene. And then it ends in an interesting, very human moment, actually, for a Bond film, where Bond and Elektra are trapped in the bubble, like buried in snow, and Elektra is
which
fucking
the bubble was
mind.
A little silly, but I think what happens afterwards kind
the bubble's a little silly, but yeah, it pays off in like putting them in this secluded death trap situation where she like has a very genuine human moment, or is it a genuine human moment? Is she manipulating Bond? It's very interesting. But just a good scene of like a good little bit of acting in that moment. Which that's the standout moment of that scene for me. Even though it's not really the actiony part of it, it's just very cool. I also like Bond's like Pierce Brosnan has some pretty funny reactions to like
he really does
like when he thinks they're all gone and then another one comes around and he like skis off the edge of the cliff and like slices through its thing. And,
I just love the shots of him like going off a ramp with a giant explosion behind him.
Oh my god, like, it's just so Pierce Brosnan 90s. It's just amazing.
Yeah. It's great. It's such a 90s action scene, but
anyway, you go ahead.
What were you saying?
You go ahead with your final pick, I guess.
No, that was my final pick. I don't have any
your final pick? We're not going to talk about the... we've only got one more we haven't talked about, which is the Spectre plane scene.
Right, which you might as well just cover the whole basis. Not our favorites, but really just all of them.
Yeah.
The Spectre... I think the Spectre plane sequence is good. I think Thomas Newman's score builds up the intensity more so than the actual scene.
Yeah.
It's it's good. It's nice that we got to see Daniel Craig tackle one of these because we hadn't seen one in a while. While he's not actually skiing, I think the plane was the plane sequence was a nice way of doing a snow sequence. It was different. They thought outside the box for it.
Yeah, I think with Spectre especially, I really like Spectre. More so than I think a lot of people do.
Yeah,
but one of its weaker points is the action. I don't think any of the action in Spectre is particularly gripping. I think
it's not necessarily the like the only reason you remember the snow plane action sequence is because it's probably the most memorable action sequence in the movie, but also because James Bond is wearing like his kind of like tribute to Majesty's in there with the giant goggles and the
I think like that scene's it's intense. I think my problem with some of the action scenes in Spectre in general, but with this one especially, and then that doesn't ruin the scene for me or anything, but I feel kind of removed from it. Like with a lot of Bond action scenes, because of the stunt work and because of the way they're shot, there's a lot of immediacy. And I'll bring this back to like the counterpoint with it with Majesty's, which is the best snow action scene. Like I was saying, with the guys were filming skiing backwards, holding cameras to get the perfect shot, and you felt like you were in the scene because of that, because the camera was moving with the actor, and there was like, even if you didn't fully realize what was going on, there was just this sense of danger in it, in the way it was shot, this ingrained in it. Whereas with the scenes in Spectre, you feel very removed from everything going on. You feel like we're at a safe distance where we're not really in any peril, and we can sort of, you know what I mean? There wasn't a ton of immediacy. And it always felt very safe. I think the most dangerous part of that scene was the crash, and that was my favorite part of the scene, where he's crashing and tobogganing on the crashing plane through the building and smashing into the convoy. I think that was the most intense part of the scene, and that's because things felt chaotic. I agree. Things felt like they weren't pre-planned and like choreographed.
Yes, yeah.
And that's my biggest problem with the car chase. The car chase feels very on the rails.
Yeah, it feels very choreographed,
And then they're going through empty streets, essentially. And it feels like very deliberately choreographed. And there's no immediacy to anything going on. There's no peril. And that's my biggest problem with the action in Spectre in general, but especially with that scene where I just sort of felt like, oh, okay, this is cool, but it's not like... Yeah. I'm almost not appreciating the actual stunt work because I don't feel like there's any danger. Which
for sure.
Which is what holds that scene back a little bit, but it doesn't ruin it. It's still a good scene. It just
I said, it's the most memorable one in the movie, maybe because of just like the way it's shot and like the elements and stuff. But yeah, so those are I'm pretty sure we covered all of the snow action sequences in the fucking series. I didn't plan on doing that, but there's only X amount of them. If we missed one, I'm sorry, it wasn't that memorable. That's all I mean,
especially if I'm not remembering it, then it's definitely not memorable.
Definitely.
Oh
was
my
not that
God.
memorable. Yeah. But yeah, let us know what your favorite James Bond snow action sequence is in the comment section below of wherever you're watching. Everyone has their own personal picks, so it's curious to see which yours might be.
I guess the opening of GoldenEye is kind of a snow action scene.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Not really, though. We won't count that.
Maybe we'll give it to you. All right, so moving on to our last little topic for today in the show, and this Christmas special of The Words Are Not Enough. We're gonna have a little bit of on Her Majesty's Secret Service appreciation, not a review, not a discussion, but just a very why this is the James Bond fans' Christmas movie. Now, of course, this wouldn't be a proper segment if I didn't let Brody start it off. So, Brody, let's just, what's the best way to do about it? When you think about Majesties, we always think about Tracy and Bond, and how this was the first time we really saw, Bond experience loss and realize that he really can't be with another woman forever. He can't get settled down and get married. And I think this is the first movie that really takes risks like that and really takes Bond into a more serious light, I guess you could say.
Well, I mean, the Bond films are always kind of serious, like, especially the earlier ones. There was a lot of serious ones in there. Like, I think the first 4 that Sean did were...
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're serious, but I guess
I
shouldn't say they're not serious. But
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying, though. I think the reason it comes across more serious is because it really is the first one to really focus on Bond as a character.
Yeah.
And it treats Bond as a character rather than as a male power fantasy kind of, like, character that you can sort of live vicariously through.
Right, for sure.
And so, I think in a lot of ways, this was the original precursor to what Daniel Craig has sort of built his entire tenure around, which is turning Bond into the human that he was in the books. Yeah. And I think he does this so well. 'Cause, I mean, it didn't have too much of a choice because it's a pretty faithful adaptation of the book in a lot of respects. So there are like little details that are changed or like taken out or whatever for the sake of making it it's already one of the longest Bond films. And so I think it took some liberties in some areas, but not in the general thesis of the book, which is Bond's humanity and his relationship with Tracy, which brings that out. And that's my favorite part. I mean, that's everyone's favorite part about Majesties, but it is just so, I guess, emotionally real. Of like, for a franchise that doesn't really have until recently didn't have a ton of emotion in it, besides like the visceral sort of thrill of spectacle. And then I say that as a fan, I love it. That's not an indictment of it in any way. But this is like, this sort of shows that there's other dimensions to the series, and that it could be more, which is great. Which is because that's why I love the books. I think, and talking about this as a Christmas movie, I almost want to justify this a little bit because
that's where I was going to go next. Why talk a little bit more about why this is really like the Bond fans' Christmas film.
Well, I think this is more of a Christmas movie than, like, everyone always talks about, like, oh, Die Hard's a Christmas movie, and I agree, it is a Christmas movie, but it's a Christmas movie because it's set at Christmas. This movie is set at Christmas, but the Christmas kind of ties into the whole thing in a lot of different ways. Like, there's this little, like, it's not just coincidentally at Christmas time. There's all this stuff going on with Blofeld giving the gifts to the Angels of Death. Which becomes their little kits to sort of spread the biopathogen or whatever. Yeah. And I don't know, like, there's the little shot of the Christmas tree when Blofeld's
I was about to say the Christmas tree.
And John Barry made a Christmas song for this movie, which you said you didn't like, you didn't think it was too memorable. I listen to it every year. I think, like, do you know how Christmas trees are made? They take I'm not
there
a
you go,
singer,
Brody. Everyone, Brody's singing.
My God! But I think I listen to it every year. I think it's a pretty decent Christmas song. but it's very much a Christmas movie, and I shouldn't have to defend that. I just think there's a lot of elements to it that feel specifically Christmassy. It's almost like a kind of like a lot of weird Christian imagery when you think about. Like, I don't think it was intentional, but like
if you dive deep into it,
I mean, if you really want to, like, it doesn't work in any kind of like analytical way, but it is kind of funny that Bond and Tracy propose to each other in a barn, which feels a little bit like feels a little bit like a manger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's also like a little odd. And then there's like I don't know. That's about it, really. But I just thought that was funny when I sort of realized it. But in general, just it's a lot of Christmassy stuff going on, and I think it's not. It should. If Die Hard is a Christmas movie, then this is definitely a Christmas movie.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. I mean, you just said a bunch of the reasons why I feel it is, but also just, I mean, the setting helps. The when they're doing the car chase on the ice, like, it is very clearly like Christmas time there and such like that.
Tracy shows up and when Bond's like fleeing, and she shows up, she's just on vacation, like Christmas vacation in the Alps, and like it's just kind of like funny.
Absolutely. I it's interesting. This is aside from the Connery films, so like the first time I watched this, it was like I had seen all the Connery films. I had seen, I think, all the Brosnan ones because I grew up with them. But this was like the first Bond film that... Actually, I take that back. I don't think I had seen all the Connery films at first. I had seen the first 4 Connery films.
You'd seen the Daniel Craig ones, right?
No, this was before the Craig ones came out. And then I watched, maybe Casino Royale had come out, but anyways, but this is really my first introduction to like a new Bond from back in the day. It wasn't like a modern Bond. Like, I mean, like, I grew up with Pierce Brosnan, I grew up with Daniel Craig to an extent, like, and I had watched most of the Connery films, but this was like the first one where it was like I was still like back in classic Bond and stuff like that. I don't know if that's really a first of anything, but
I totally know what you mean though. Like because Connery is like a given as Bond, and then obviously Pierce Brosnan was a given because we grew up with him. This is kind of like, this is when you sort of start to realize, oh, there's a bunch of different movies. Like, there's a bunch of different ones. Like,
yeah, exactly. And most people, the natural progression is to go from Connery to Roger Moore, but there's a little film in there that is probably one of the best ones in the entire series. And I just remember watching it, and I was like, this movie is incredible. It's got stakes. It's got emotions. We're diving deep into the characters. The action is off the charts, like we just mentioned we were talking about. Actually, we did forget an action scene, and it's not inherently snowy in where it takes place, but it's when they're storming Blofeld's hideout, when he comes back with
you're right.
Yeah, and they're storming that, and they're trying to find Tracy, take out Blofeld, and all that stuff. That's right before the bobsled chase. Yeah,
I mean, that's the big finale. That's like the
yeah, I mean, it's the big final action sequence, which, by the way, I love that action sequence. So maybe you can count that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I can't believe we didn't even mention that. That was, I mean, I guess we sort of we spoke for so long on the ski scenes that we didn't even think of the rest of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just like there's so many things that in there that are just like iconic in terms of Bond that I feel like go underappreciated by your average person.
Yeah,
who may not be like, oh, George Lazenby, he did one Bond film. Isn't that like supposed to be the worst because he only ddid one Bond film?
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, but I just remember watching it and being I was enamored with like the modernness of the Brosnan films and I think Casino Royale maybe, and I loved Sean Connery. Like I just loved Sean Connery in the in his movies, and I loved him in like The Last Crusade, which I was already familiar with. But then you go into Majesty's and you're like, I have no idea who this actor is. He's not Sean Connery, but he's kind of like Sean Connery in a way. He's very much his own, but he still has that like bold charisma.
Yes, he's definitely playing the same character.
Yeah, and I was just like the structure of this film. it feels like a movie, not necessarily like a Bond movie. Because, you know, sometimes the structures of the Bond movie, they're very, they're different than, I guess, other films, I guess.
Yeah, there is a Bond formula for constructing a film, and this didn't have a lot of that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and I felt like I was watching this, and I was
Casino
like,
Royale's the same way.
I was like, this feels different in a great way. Like, this is, you know, they were taking so many risks here. They were ahead of its time. It was ahead of its time, really. And yeah, I don't know. I just fell in love instantly, and I was like, this is one of the best Bond films. Actually, you know, at the time, I think that was my favorite Bond film, sans Casino Royale.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, I love this movie. I watch it quite often. Definitely watch it around Christmas. I haven't watched it yet, though, to be honest, around Christmas time. It's almost Christmas. I haven't watched it yet. Maybe I'll pop it in tonight.
Yeah.
But there's so much to love with this movie. There's so much juiciness in it. You know, Telly Savalas as Blofeld. The guy is like,
incredible.
I still think he's the best Blofeld we've ever had. He has like he has a nice balance of like charisma and sinisterness. He eats it up when he's on screen, and his scenes with him and George Lazenby are extremely well done. It's not like they have the best chemistry, but like there's a nice rapport there, I guess you could say.
Yeah, no, I think that you definitely understand their relationship based on how they interact, and
right, for sure. But and like I said, you know, just Telly Savalas is just, you know, he's an A-class, he's like a world-class actor, but just in that movie especially, really, he defined Blofeld for me.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny because I read, just real quick, retrospectively, like, I watched that movie, and then I went back and I watched You Only Live Twice, and I was like, what the hell is going on?
And that's the thing, like, I totally agree, because, like, not because we talk about how Bond as a character is sort of, like, treated as a character for once in this movie. But the same goes for Blofeld and for Tracy as the Bond girl. Like, the Bond girl is treated like a three-dimensional character.
Yes.
And Blofeld as the villain is treated as a three-dimensional... He's not just like, I'm sniveling and I'm sitting in the chair and I'm giving orders. Like, he had shit to do in this movie. Like, he was involved in his plot far more than Blofeld was in previous entries and then in future entries. And so... Yeah, he really is, like, quite a standout. Like, can you imagine Donald Pleasance getting on skis to chase Bond?
No, absolutely not. You can't. You can't picture that Blofeld doing the stuff that Telly Savalas does in the movie. Yeah. That's why I think it was important for them to, like, show him before he did any kind of like action stuff, because it was like, listen, this is not the Blofeld that you guys are familiar with from You Only Live Twice. This is a very, you know, he's serious. You can take him seriously now. He's a force to be reckoned with.
I mean, yeah, he's even a little different than the Blofeld we'd seen, like him just sitting in the chair stroking his cat. Like, he's
like out in the snow, like smoking his cigarette, like in a really weird way.
Oh my god, yeah, I rave about Telly Savalas. He's so good as Blofeld.
He is. He really is.
And well, we should talk about Tracy since we've.
Well, I absolutely go into the main characters. I mean, Diane Rigg. What can you say? She's like incredible. Probably the second best Bond girl for me, at least, aside from Vesper.
Yeah, and she's got a lot of spunk for a character like who isn't like. And this goes back to what we're talking about with the female Bonds. This kind of ties into it. Like, the Bond franchise does have a little trouble sometimes with depicting its women. Yeah, you know, not a hot take there, but no. But because either they are kind of useless, like think of Mary Goodnight in
oh my god, she was useless,
where she was just completely useless and like you know, just.
I mean, Christmas Jones even.
Christmas Jones. Well, Christmas Jones is almost the exact opposite, I would say. Christmas Jones, like a lot of the Pierce Brosnan ones, really. Christmas Jones and Jinx especially, though. And a little bit of Wei Lin, in that they make the Bond girl hyper capable to the point where the only aspect of her character that you know is that she's tough. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Jinx is tough, no business. She's the female Bond. Or Wei Lin is she's the female Bond. That's my.
Well, I don't know. I kind of felt like
thing.
Christmas Jones was a little more useless than
she was a little more useless, but she's like a nuclear physicist, and she's
she was like a do-it-all,
yeah, and like which is fine. It
could have worked had they had a better actress.
That's the thing. If they didn't have like someone who looked like a model playing, and not that you can't be beautiful and be a nuclear physicist. She just looked like an airhead, like because like in the same film, Elektra is gorgeous and you believe her as being cunning and interesting, and she's one of the few examples, like her and Natalia, the only two Bond girls in the Brosnan era who are like fleshed out characters.
Oh, for sure.
But my favorite thing to hear whenever like people talk about Bond girls, whenever Bond girls talk about Bond girls, I should say, whenever like before the film comes out, they talk about it, they're like without fail, one of them goes, she's kind of Bond's equal. She's kind of like a female Bond. They always say it, like Olga Kurylenko. Said that about Camille. They all say it. It's just so funny. Because they don't always end up being the female Bond, but some of them do, in that like they take the surface levels of being tough like Bond and they slap it onto this character, and that's the only characterization the character gets. And the nice thing about Tracy is Tracy isn't the female Bond. She is
no, she's her own character. She's
her own character, but that doesn't mean she's like, just because she's not a super spy like Bond, she has a very strong will. When she's captured by Blofeld and she's in Blofeld's lair, she is very like, she's very smart. She's very like clued in, and she like gives Blofeld what for. She's not just a damsel in distress. And like even her relationship with Bond is very mature, and like the way she deals with him, and she's tough, but she's not like, oh, I can beat you in a fight tough.
She's real. That's what
she's real. She's a real, like she's written like a real person. And then I think Vesper's the same way, in that like she's not a like tough as nails female version of Bond in that she's a spy, but she's strong-willed and she has convictions and she has motivations of her own that extend beyond being the Bond girl. And so that's my favorite thing about Tracy. Tracy is just such a well-written character, especially for the time. Like, this is the late 60s. We hadn't really hit female, like women's liberation of like the 70s yet. I was sort of getting into that, but like it's so cool to see like a strong Bond girl who isn't just like an archetype, isn't just like, you know what I mean? I'm repeating myself, but isn't like
I totally understand what you're saying, because I feel the same way. Like, we kind of do on this movie in general, but
yeah, I mean, this is gonna be a big love fest for this movie, but like, screw it. This movie really just does everything right, and one of the more obvious and prominent things that it does right is the Bond girl. I'm not saying every Bond girl has to be like this, because not every one of them is going to have a meaningful relationship like Bond, like what Tracy had. But I think that, and you don't, I don't know, sometimes you see it, sometimes you don't. I think it's always good to keep in mind, you know, keep in mind Tracy when you are creating a Bond girl. And maybe trying to emulate some of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I totally agree. Yeah.
And not just in like, you know, her relationship with Bond, but just kind of in like how she's very much her own person. That's always the best Bond girls, unless they just have ludicrous names, are the ones that are their own persons, or their own persons.
My favorite. No, but I mean, like, even going back, like, because I won't say Tracy was even the first to do this. Pussy Galore, ridiculous name aside, Pussy Galore is an entrepreneur. She has her own like fucking business. She goes into business with Goldfinger, not because she's a villain, just because it's convenient for her. And then she turns around and betrays him, and her betrayal leads to Goldfinger's plot being completely dismantled. And so like she's got her own motivations outside of Bond. Some little like problematic stuff with like Bond like forcing himself on her. But even still, she is like, she's a very like independent character and like independent of Bond. And I feel like going back to what we're talking about, like women in Hollywood, I think that when you're writing a female action character, and I'm not going to like mansplain this or anything, you know, like I don't want to be accused of that. But the way I see, when I see a well-written female character, and when I see a poorly written female character, it usually comes down to whether or not the character is like, it comes down to like, if you're making a strong character, is the character strong because you wrote the story to make them strong, or is the character strong because it comes from within them? Like, right. Someone like Jinx is not a strong female character because nothing she does in the movie has any consequence, and except she talks tough and she fights tough. You know what I mean? Like, her as a character has no bearing on the plot really, other than like we wrote it in that she saves the day. Whereas with Tracy doesn't necessarily save the day, but her strength of will, her standing up to Blofeld, her like sort of knowing what she wants as a person, makes her a stronger character than Jinx or a stronger character than Waylon. So I think inner strength rather than like brute force is what makes a character strong. Not every character has to be strong. Sometimes there are weak people. That's my big defense of everyone. This is completely off topic, but Willie Scott in Temple of Doom, everyone hates her because she's a fairly weak character. In terms
she's
of, like,
useless, really.
She's useless, but I kind of like her because she's not pretending to be tough. She is just a pampered rich like girl who gets swept up in this terrible adventure like that ruins her life. I think that's kind of entertaining, and I don't think every character has to be like. I don't think every character in movies has to be strong. Like there are plenty of weak male characters too that I like.
Right.
But it has to be motivated by character, not by like convenience that we need a damsel to save, or like, you know what I mean? We need a useful idiot. So yeah, that's my little hot take on that, I guess. But yeah, Tracy's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. No, I totally understand what you're saying. Like you speak the truth, Brody. But anyways, just to kind of wrap up this discussion of or this little praise of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, one of the best Bond films today. Just what are your final thoughts on it? Just kind of wrap it up.
I think the only thing I can really say that you kind of already said was this feels, you're right, it feels like a movie before it feels like a Bond movie. And that's my favorite thing about it. This feels like a real movie, independent of the franchise. It happens to be in the franchise. It feels like it's a part of the franchise, but it's strong on its merits alone that I think it's worth watching regardless of whether or not you're a Bond fan. Like, and I feel the same way about like Casino Royale. There are a couple of the Bond films in the franchise, like From Russia with Love, where I feel like they transcend the franchise and they become just like remarkable pieces of cinema. So that's how I feel about this movie. This is a remarkable piece of cinema and a remarkable Bond film, all wrapped into one wonderful Christmas present.
Yes, beautiful, great way to end it off there. No, I mean, I've said a lot already. I do think this is one of the best Bond films ever made. I think that George Lazenby is criminally underrated, although I think he's becoming more and more appreciated now, which is a good thing.
I agree.
You know, he brings physicality, he brings charisma. I mean, he can be a little flat sometimes, but hey, it's his first acting gig. Diane Rigg, we've already said everything we need to say about her. Telly Savalas as well. Action sequences are incredible, and this is the first time that it really felt like they were trying to make a compelling and character-driven movie, not just a Bond film, which is why I think it stands out from the pack and why it still to this day remains one of the best, one of the greats in the Bond franchise. So with that is going to do it for this episode, this Christmas special of The Words Are Not Enough. Thank you for joining us. I know it's a little bit of a long one. We had a lot to discuss, but hopefully you enjoyed our takes on everything. And hopefully you all have a very happy Christmas, happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. I hope you have a great one. And hopefully this episode brings a little holiday cheer to you during the season. Yeah. If you are a Bond fan. Which, if you're not, why are you listening to this show? But thank you, though. Oh my gosh!
Thanks for watching 2 hours of a podcast about a series you couldn't give less of a shit about.
Yeah, for real. If you made it this far,
I appreciate that.
God love you. God love you. But anyways, guys, if you like this episode or you like what we're doing at The Words Are Not Enough, I can't even speak, man. My mind is in bunch of different directions. If you like what we're doing here at The Words Are Not Enough, why don't you head on over to iTunes and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. That is the best way that you can get our content instantly. It's immediately downloaded into your podcast feed. And then also while you're over there, why don't you leave us a rating and review, because that truthfully helps us. The more ratings and reviews we get, the better chance the show has of getting noticed by other people. And it really just helps us as far as feedback goes. So, that would be phenomenal if you could do that. But, if you aren't an Apple user or you aren't big on that stuff, whatever, you can also find this podcast on iHeartRadio, or you can head on over to YouTube at Men vs. Movies. All of the episodes are uploaded there as well. All right, Brody, where can the world find you?
The world is not enough, and they can find me. And I know where I was going with that. They can find me at Brody Saravelli on Twitter. I tweet about movies and politics sometimes and stuff. So if you're not offended by that sort of content, please check me out. I also try to be funny sometimes, so who knows?
Yeah, he tries. Sometimes he is. Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, maybe. 40% of the time.
Right. Yeah, anyways, if you guys like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can always give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. All right, thank you all for making this latter half of the year great for The Words Are Not Enough. We've got a lot of listeners. If you are a loyal listener, we appreciate you. We hope you have a great holiday season and a very happy new year. We may have a special episode for you in the next week. May not. I'm not going to guarantee it, but it'll probably be the first week of the new year. We're going to be talking about Brody's thoughts on what Bond 25 should be.
Not should be, needs to be.
What it needs to be in order to succeed. Exactly. Anyways, though, thanks again, guys, for your support and everything, and we'll see you in the new year. Until then, take care.
Bye.